Tomorrow, the Supreme Court is to hear oral arguments in two cases that ask the justices to overturn decades-old precedents that have allowed colleges to consider race as one factor in admissions decisions in order to create diverse student bodies. Opponents of that practice say that any decision based on race is wrong. Angel Perez is CEO of the National Association for College Admission Counseling, a national group of college admissions and counseling professionals. The group has filed a brief with the Supreme Court defending the use of race in college admissions. Angel Perez, thanks so much for joining us. From your perspective, what's at stake in these cases tomorrow?
I think there's a lot at stake. I think the ability for institutions of higher education to diversify is at stake, as well as for students of color in particular to gain greater access to higher education. It's a pretty big moment in history.
The driving force behind this is an organization called Students for Fair Admissions. It's run by Edward Bloom. We asked him what his aim is in these cases, and he said, "We believe that a student's race should not be used to help or harm that student's chances of being admitted to a competitive college." What's your response?
I disagree. I think it's important for the American public to know that most institutions of higher education use race as one factor of many, many factors in what we call holistic college admission. And so it's really important for institutions to be able to take into account the entire lived experience of a student, and that takes into account race. It's very difficult to actually evaluate a student's entire life without really taking that into account.
How do you reconcile that or to the ideal that we're being taught of a race-blind society where race doesn't matter?
Yeah, I think that should still be the goal. But the reality of the matter is, and we have certainly seen this in the past several years with a racial reckoning in this country, is that we are not there yet. Race still matters in this country. And also, it's very clear that we have many marginalized populations. There are many students with fewer resources. The majority of those students do tend to be students of color. And so taking all of these factors into account is really important so that we can continue to try to ensure that as many students who deserve to be at institutions of higher education have access to do so.
If the Students for Fair Admissions were to prevail and the Supreme Court were to say that colleges cannot consider race as a factor in making decisions, how big a change would this be to the college admissions process?
I think it's important for students to know that they probably will not see a change in their process. What will change is how colleges and universities diversify their applicant pools, the way they might reach out to students, the way they might recruit students. And certainly what's going to change is that when admission officers are evaluating applications, they will not be able to take race into consideration, but they will continue to use holistic college admission.
There are two states, California and Michigan, where the voters have said by ballot initiative that race and ethnicity cannot be used in admissions decisions at state universities. What's the track record? How have they done?
I think we can learn a lot from Michigan as well as California. And the one thing I think is important for people to know is that both of those states have now been successful in recruiting diverse populations into their institutions. But when Prop 209, for example, happened in the state of California, there was a very large drop in the enrollment of students of color for several years before institutions were able to recruit those numbers. And so a big part of where the focus is going to be in the future is recruitment.
So aren't you sort of acknowledging that the other side has a point, that you can achieve diversity without using race as a factor in admissions decisions?
You certainly can, but it is very, very difficult. And one of the things that the University of California has stated very clearly is that they still have not achieved the numbers that they had before of students of color, even though they are in the most diverse state in the nation. And for me, this is really important because it's not just about college admissions. This is about the future of a nation. This is about whether or not we are going to teach young people to be able to engage across difference, to be able to learn from each other. We're already a deeply divided nation. Imagine if college campuses become less diverse.
Angel Perez of the National Association for College Admission Counseling, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.